Hi, fifth graders. Happy New Year. This week we are going to talk about Pilgrims and Puritans in New England. Some groups in England wanted the freedom to practice their religion. The Separatists were one of these groups. They were called Separatists because they wanted to separate from the Church of England. Another group known as the Puritans wanted to change the Church of England. Both groups were influenced by the Protestant Reformation, which encouraged equality among worshippers. The Separatists and the Puritans left Europe hoping for freedom to practice their religion. These are the objectives that we are targeting during this lesson. To summarize the religious and economic reasons that prompted Pilgrims and Puritans to settle in New England. To explain the significance of the Mayflower Compact, to describe the relationship between American Indians and English settlers in New England, as well as to describe the kinds of communities the Pilgrims and Puritans created. By the end of this lesson, we will be able to mention the key events in the establishment of English colonies in New England. Before we learn more about Pilgrims and Puritans, these are the vocabulary words that we are going to introduce during the lesson. A pilgrim is someone who makes a long journey, usually for religious reasons. Puritan is someone who wanted to change the Church of England and came to North America to worship freely in the 1600s. Mayflower Compact is an agreement made by the Pilgrims to govern themselves. On this slide, the first picture represents Pilgrims and the second picture represents Puritans. Let's talk about the Pilgrims. Some separatists went to jail in England because of their religious beliefs. They moved to the Netherlands where they could worship more freely. For about 12 years, these separatists lived in the Netherlands. Eventually, the group decided to go to the northern part of the Virginia colony. The separatists thought they would be able to worship freely there. The separatists did not have enough money to finance their journey, so they made an agreement with a company of investors similar to the Virginia Company. In exchange for paying for the trip, shelter, food, tools, and other supplies, the separatists would work for the company for 7 years. They would send natural resources such as lumber, fish, and furs back to England. If we look at the image on the slide, we can see how this group of people, pilgrims, left their families, left their homes, their land, to travel to unknown territory, to unknown land. So, what do you think are some risks and sacrifices the pilgrims boarding the Mayflower may have made? You're right. As I mentioned, they left families, friends, they probably lost culture of their homelands, the dangers of the journey, lack of food, storms, disease, and so much more you may have mentioned. The separatists left from England. They were joined by English colonists who belonged to the Church of England. On September 16, 1620, 102 passengers on board of the Mayflower headed for New England. All of the colonists became known as Pilgrims. Before leaving the Mayflower, most of the men aboard gathered to sign an important agreement. This document, known as the Mayflower Compact, explained how the Pilgrims would govern themselves. They promised to work together and hold meetings to talk about important issues. The Pilgrims were supposed to land near the mouth of the Hudson River. Bad weather and dangerous water conditions forced them north to what is today Cape Cod. After exploring the area, a group chose a spot on a hill to settle on it. It had water, a good harbor, and fields. Wampanoag Indians had once lived there. The Pilgrims called their new home Plymouth and began to build a settlement. This was the first settlement, and it went through a very harsh winter in which many colonists fell ill and died. The Pilgrims also met the Wampanoag people in the area. They learned that a series of epidemics had killed a great number of Wampanoag. Massasoit, the Wampanoag chief, made an agreement with the Pilgrims. The two groups would trade and protect one another. Everyone at the Plymouth colony worked. The Pilgrims had to cut down trees to build houses and to clear fields. They had to grow their own food and to eat and to trade with the Wampanoag. Plymouth was based on self-sufficient family farms. After their first year, though, the Pilgrims did celebrate. The harvest in the fall of 1621 had been good. They invited the Wampanoag to a feast of Thanksgiving. For 3 days. The Plymouth colonists and Wampanoag Indians relaxed and ate together. And yes, as you may guess, this is the beginning of a tradition that especially North America, or specifically the United States, still follows. On the last Thursday of November, families gather and give thanks for food, family, health, and all the blessings that they've received. In 1629, the Massachusetts Bay Colony received a charter from King Charles I of England to settle in New England. Many of the company members were Puritans. Like the Separatists, the Puritans left England to start a colony where they could worship freely. John Winthrop was the leader of the Puritans and a member of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. In 1630, he held a group of about 1,000 Puritans to New England. Winthrop wanted the new colony to be an example for others to follow, and called it a city upon a hill. He believed that the colonists had to work together. Everyone had to be responsible for his or her actions. The Puritans quickly began building towns. Each town had its own church, which all the townspeople had to attend. The Puritans also believed in education. They felt that all colonists should be able to read the Bible. So they also built schools and libraries to train church leaders. The Puritans founded Harvard College. Church leaders governed, and all colonists had to obey church teachings. No one was allowed to question the Puritans' beliefs. People who did speak out were punished. Some people were thrown out of the colony because of their beliefs. The Pilgrims did not try to convert American Indians to their religion. The Puritans, however, felt it was their duty to convince the Indians to become Christians. The Puritans had some success in converting Indians to Christianity. By 1650, they began setting up villages called praying towns. Indians living there promised to give up their native language, ceremonies, beliefs, and customs. In our next lesson, we are going to learn about another European country who also became interested in claiming territory in this new found land. See you in class, guys.